Hey, everybody, Jerry here. Thanks for tuning in. Before we head to the episode, I want to start doing something before each of these episodes for the time being, which is to highlight some of the businesses that are owned by our listeners and our supporters. I'm doing this because I think they need our help more than ever. A lot of restaurants are being asked to close down. Obviously, foot traffic is becoming an issue because it's only pickup and delivery. But in this time, I think we need to stick together as a community and to help those in our community keep their businesses afloat, pay their employees, and to make sure that they come out of this stronger and more united than ever. So today, I want to tell you about Mothership Coffee Roasters. It is a business owned by Josh and Wani, who are two amazing Asian American friends of mine living in Las Vegas. They are owners of Mothership Coffee Roasters and of Sunrise Coffee. They have 3 locations in Las Vegas, still open. If you are in the local area, please go visit them. It's in Henderson, downtown, and one by McCarran Airport. But if you are not in the local Las Vegas area, you can still get their coffee delivered to you. You can visit them on the web and learn more about their amazing coffee at mothershipcoffee.com or check them out on Instagram at Mothership Coffee. I've been to Wani's coffee shops. I've had her coffee. It is amazing and delicious. Please support local Asian American businesses in this trying time for a lot of people. Again, go to mothershipcoffee.com, learn more about her, Josh, the team, and the products that they sell, and let's continue to support Asian American businesses. Thanks again for tuning in, and here's our episode. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Dear Asian Americans. I am your host, Jerry Wan, and today is Tuesday, March 17th, day 2 of our Helpers series, where we are taking a pause from our normal interviews and talking to our friends in the community who are doing some amazing things in their own way, however we can, to make sure that we get out of this coronavirus scare and in our local communities. So yesterday we heard from John Lim, who has made an expansion pack to his game Asian Flush and donating all of his profits to a charity. And today I am excited to host somebody who is from my hometown right here in Los Angeles.
Yeah,
Is a fellow Trojan.
that's right.
And before we lose a lot of the audience by saying how proud we are of where we are from, I'd love to welcome John Ma to the show. Thanks, John.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. It's really cool to be here. Jerry, I gotta say, this entire process of coming into this world, actually, you and I met through what? A Facebook group? ACN, maybe? Is that right?
I think it was ACN. It may have been. And Hanju is going to be on the show in the next couple weeks, which I'm equally excited for.
That's very cool. I did not know that backstory. I didn't realize that you and I had the Andrew Yang bug in common. That's something that you were involved with, the campaign, or are you still involved? There's still a lot going on now. Humanity Forward, the new nonprofit, right? Going after all the big
I am
platforms.
aware of it. I am on the emailing list.
Uh-huh.
I have contributed to Andrew's campaign and have, I got a math hat.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
With 2 little kids at home, it was hard and it continues to be hard to make events and things like that. But I think you and I would agree, and then a lot of people here, it was one of the coolest things for us to collectively go through as a community, regardless of your politics and regardless of what you actually thought about Andrew's chances of winning. We talked a
Yeah.
lot in the community about, dude, it was just cool to see somebody that looks like us and make our, corny jokes. And,
Oh, man.
as a father of a 3-year-old kid, for
Mm.
me to be able to point to the TV and say, hey, look, that's, Appa's friend Andrew,
Yeah.
and he's on
Yeah,
TV
yeah, that's
and he can be
awesome.
our president one day. So, I think a lot of us who supported Andrew in his campaign and continue to be involved in the Humanity Forward context, we do it because the content matters, but I'd be lying if I didn't say that a chunk of it was because representation matters to me so much.
Mhm. You sound like a great dad, by the way.
I'm going to edit that out because
You better not.
it's
You better not.
everybody's got a different journey, man. We do our best, given the circumstances that we have, and grateful for the opportunity. And
Yeah.
before I ask you to introduce yourself, Jen, I'm gonna say a little bit to all the parents that are listening. Maybe you are home, working from home, and your kids are home, and that is a cause of challenges and frustrations. I'm right there with you. And maybe it's extra challenging because work is not letting up and they are expecting you to be a superhuman and not being kind to the situation that we are going through. Hearing a lot of stories about that from my friends. I want to congratulate and thank all the parents for doing an amazing job. None of us foresaw this. Kids are home. We're home. We shouldn't leave the home. There's a lot going on. But whatever and however you are getting through these times, and if there was ever a weird silver lining to all the weird stuff that's been going on, you get to be at home 24 hours with your kids, man.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
it took a global pandemic for a lot of us to be able to go through that experience. I got two very young children at home, so they're loving it. I've heard that some teenagers are already, getting a little frustrated with mom and dad being up in their business at all times, and we've certainly all been there. But to the moms and dads and aunts and uncles and grandparents out there holding down the fort with the kids, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you for what you do, and so enough about me and my my soapbox. John, tell us about you. Where did you grow up? What did you study? And
Oh,
what did you study? That's a very Asian mom
I was
question to ask.
I
So
loved that. No, no, that caught me right there. I was like, "Wow, we're this is Dear Asian Americans, folks. This is what you're signing up for. Stick around." So no, this is how I always start my story. I tell people that I was born and raised in Phoenix, which is true. But I also grew up in the Bay Area. I went to high school in the Bay Area. So what was different about those two places is, as long as I lived in Phoenix, if you do the numbers, it's 13 years. It actually feels like quite a long time, especially when you're that young. It's my entire childhood, right? I, I I I left there at the start of high school, so it was everything up till that point. And I was the only Asian person like really around. I say that hesitantly because I remember there were others, but there were so few, and it was never talked about that it felt like I was the only one. It really did feel that way a lot of the time. And there's so few of us. There were so few of us out there at the time that, at least where I lived, where Asian wasn't even a thing. I was just the Chinese kid. I was just
mm,
Chinese, right? I was just that, and it wasn't really. There was no grouping. There was no identity really. So that was hard for a lot of reasons. It's just a deep thing to be young and looking for your place and lost inside your own home, wondering why it's so different from the other homes, wondering why people can't come over or stay over, or why you can't go for too long. There's all this mystique and fear and mystery inside of that as a young person, at least the way I experienced it, that has always stayed with me, to be very honest. And Since then, high school was a radical change. I went to Monte Vista High School in Cupertino, heart of Silicon Valley in the mid 2000s. And it was quite a strange time and very different for me, in addition, because coming from Phoenix to a place where my graduating class was 70% first or second gen East, Southeast, South Asian American, mostly. And yeah, yeah, it's really actually funny. We're in census time right now. So I'm thinking to myself, like,
yeah.
what does Asian American really mean?
Oh,
Anyways, yeah,
yep,
right? Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I
yep,
actually
yep.
have a friend. He started a group. It's a nationwide. Oh, there's so many things to tell you about, Jerry. I wish we could talk all about these things. But he started a group. PAME. I've never heard this acronym. Maybe this is an old thing. I might be new to this. PAME, Pan Asian Middle Eastern. Have you heard of this? It's so
No,
elegant. It's so elegant. It captures it all. Like it's like the furthest west to the furthest east, Pan Asian, Middle Eastern, like lovely, right? Anyways, I
very
find that
cool.
fabulous. Yeah, if you just throw in the islands, then you get you'll have it all. It's just there's so many of us, man. Yeah, I always joke about Asian Americans. Another word for us is people of the global majority, the PGM. That's
Yeah,
what
I
we
mean,
are.
look, we're minority here in a small subset of the population in America,
Right.
but it's majority and minority are always relative terms.
Yes. Fastest growing minority in a soon to be majority minority country. It's all very strange and different. I feel like as an Asian, and this sort of gets into maybe some of the stuff I think you wanted me to talk about when you said introduce yourself. But I always feeling like I'm in between, right? So I went to USC for undergrad. I left the Bay Area in a huff. Uh, didn't want, waited till the very fucking last minute to decide between Cal or USC, and I chose USC because they had this program. They still have this program. It's continuing on, called the BCA program. I think it's still what it's called. BCA stands for Business and Cinematic Arts, and it was a joint degree program for undergrads, almost reminiscent of the Peter Stark producing program that the USC grad cinema school is famous for. And it was billed as a pathway into the entertainment industry. And I, graduated high school in 2007, watched a lot of Ari Gold on Entourage,
Mm,
fell in love with the idea. Yeah, fell in love with the idea and the mystique of this sexy place called LA and all these people and storytelling and creativity and spark and charisma and challenge and risk. And I wanted that, right? And so I came and I enrolled in that program. I said bye to this place I was just getting to know, and I ended up here, and I've been here since 2007. It's been a wild time, man.
that's very cool. I think the BCA program is still going on. I know
Yeah.
a student who's currently in it, Neil
Oh,
Sabatas.
cool.
If you're listening, shout out to Neil.
Yeah. Oh shit, get hooked up.
You know,
Nice.
um, Phoenix is a fascinating place. I'm going to go back to Phoenix for a little bit because I have cousins who grew up there. Um,
Wow.
yeah,
When
so
and where?
so I have four cousins on my dad's side, all
Uh-huh.
dudes. There's six dudes.
Wow.
That's it. Yeah, two of the ones whose parents and their whole family live there. They grew up in Chandler, and one of them
Oh.
are still there. And then
Oh.
two other ones from the other aunt. They were international students, or they just studied there, and both of them went to Phoenix Christian.
I don't even know where that is, but Chandler's right next to where I grew up. But when were they there? Or when
Uh,
did they grow up to go? When? How old are they? I guess is what I'm really trying to ask. And if they've been
uh,
there their whole lives, that's crazy.
Andy, if you're listening, I'm giving out a lot of personal information. Um, Andy is born in '89, so
Oh, yeah,
whatever
that's
that
me.
math
I'm
comes out to
90.
be.
I'm 90.
Oh,
So
very cool.
we were fucking, I mean, we might have gone to
You
rival
might have
high
crossed
schools
paths.
if I'd
I think he went
yeah,
to
fuck around.
Hamilton. Andy, don't fact check me, and I'm giving away too much
That's
information about my
hilarious.
cousin. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, so it's I understand a little bit of the identity an Asian American person grows up. Because in addition to my cousins, I have other friends from there, and I think it's an extremely different identity journey because
Mm.
you're right. They don't
Part of
even know Korea, or they don't even know Japan, or other
wow.
countries. It's just China. So which is an
Right.
evolution, right? And I think
Yeah.
it is what it is. But so yeah, I think that's a journey that many people go through. Um, I am generally from LA and then spent my high school years in New York City and in extremely very diverse areas where I never really felt alone, or had to explain myself,
Mm.
which comes with both
Interesting.
ups and downs of identity issues. Yeah, I think that's awesome, man. And so you are in the entertainment industry, you have a day job, you are
I
extremely
do.
successful at your day job, but I am more excited to talk to you about how you spend your extra hours. So
Yes.
let's jump to what you are doing with the organization called Ground Game. Tell us a little bit about what they
Oh
do.
boy. Yeah. So I'm very new to Ground Game, folks. This organization's been around through some crazy shit. The original story is, and you can find this all on our website actually, groundgamela.org. Or if you're like most people, you find us through our Twitter account at Ground Game LA. And Ground Game is a 501c4, which means that it's a nonprofit that can engage in electoral speech and raise money for electoral campaigns. And it is a really radical place, and I mean that in the best sense of the word, in every sense of the word. It is an organizing hub. It is a watering hole. It is an open community. Prior to the COVID, which I just brought it up. We're going to get into that right away,
Hmm.
shortly. Prior to this whole situation, we had open door meetings every Thursday night, and people from any community and people from every community did often come to represent themselves, to speak up, to seek help. What we do is we pool our resources, our organizing know-how, our institutional connections. We are all over the city in different capacities. Corporate world, the courts, campaigns, present and future. On the ground, we are community members. We are people who are unhoused. We are people who are living the experience, and we are people like me who have a day job and spend our evenings and weekends doing what we can. And we come together with all these different experiences and perspectives, and we try to build something. We try to build a future that is equitable and just, and that services the total community and represents the total community in that determination of where resources and how resources are allocated. And it's a beautiful experience that I've had so far. Scarcely a year. What I'm working on right now through them is we decided to stand up a mutual aid infrastructure, a network. Mutual aid basically is this horizontal egalitarian notion that people can take care of each other. People can take care of each other in the gaps of what government could fill but doesn't. People take care of each other in times when our institutions are overburdened. Both of those are true about where we are right now. And it's an opportunity for ground game and organizations just like us. We are not alone. There are many organizations, bigger, older, younger, smaller than ours, with whom we work together and whom are showing up to do what we're trying to do, which is connect Angelinos to one another so that resources, cash, know how can flow organically through the capillaries of our streets and through our Zoom windows and through our delivery hazmat solution, which we are rapidly deploying in the coming days to bring things to people's doors.
So mutual aid. Explain to the audience what mutual aid is in reality. What does it do? Where does it live? And how are people involved on both sides
Mutual
of
aid
mutual?
is yeah, mutual aid is an idea, right? It's a name for an idea. But the idea is people helping each other, and for us, it means getting people to provide information into a database that we can then begin to use to link people up, so that people who have things and people who need things can be connected, and that there is also a transportational delivery infrastructure in the middle of that that can safely, as best as possible and as legally as possible, we don't know what's going to happen soon, navigate the corridors to make sure that exchanges occur. So that's all of what that is in this particular instance.
And how is the network activated? Where does it live?
Well, we have a right now very rudimentary, ultimately rudimentary, just Google form. It's quite good for a Google form. I'm not gonna lambast it for that, but it is free free internet software. And yeah, so we have a Google form stood up that connects into our we have a just a very simple backend where we're tracking the data. And so far, the volume has not been such that we've had to upgrade to anything bigger. We have about short of 400 responses since going live the other evening, in terms of people that have entered in what they want and what they need. We've raised about $16,000 or $17,000 at this point on our GoFundMe, and there's a Facebook page. So it's all very sort of scrappy. What a gang of volunteers can put together while we are all dealing with all kinds of things. And yeah, and doing that in between. And we're proud of ourselves, and there's much more to do. And it's also a good bite-sized start to grow organically. And we could use your help. So if you're out there working on something similar to this, or have skills that could plug into this, technology skills, I think could be actually very useful quite soon. Volunteer capacity, I think we may have that covered in the short term. But there's all kinds of scaling things I can see very quickly happening to us in success that none of us have the experience directly to handle when it does show up at our doorstep. But at the moment, we're getting started, and it's just life, trying to do our
Hey man,
best.
first, thank you to and all your friends and everybody else involved with Ground Game and Mutual Aid LA. Quick shout out to our friend Roger Zhao, who is also doing very similar things in LA to help strangers basically eat and get to where they need to get to and give everybody our best chances really for survival at this point. Little bit ground game is, you said, is a 501c4 and around the world right now, in particular in LA, is not a partisan issue. It's not a race issue. It's not an anything issue. It's an everybody issue. Have you seen that reflected in the amount of, or in the types of volunteers that are coming out, or even in the people that are asking for help through this? Because at the end of the day, none of that really matters right now.
Interesting. So I'm going to ask you if you can rephrase that. Um, are you asking whether representation? Could you rephrase that one more time?
Are people within the group? So the way I understand the ground game organization, it is a somewhat of a political organization, correct?
Yes.
But you are doing something that benefits everybody, regardless of who you vote for or what you look like, because it's bigger than that right now.
I see. Well, here's how it works. Need is real in the sense that some people need more, have less basic needs met, etc. On our intake form, very plainly, when we go through the first section of stating what your needs are, we ask a lot of specific questions actually about your identity. We ask questions about your race, class background, sexual identity, and gender identity. A lot of the people that are most in need, we give people a chance to sort of tell their story too in the form if they choose to. But there's a lot of people in the city who, without when you're crunching data, and you're trying to really be responsive to assess where people are. And by the way, I'm not an expert in this. We have a team doing needs assessment. These are people who work with very marginalized, poor, unhoused immigrant communities, and are much better at sort of eyeballing or assessing these kinds of things than I am. So I might even be introducing assumptions that they won't be operating on. I can't speak to their exact work. But what I do know is that when I helped build the form out and the rationales that were given around some of the things that were written in the form and the way that we're looking at the data now, what I can say in good faith is that it actually does matter very much your identity in the city. In the city, things as simple as skin color and immigration status, language ability. Actually, these things are not simple. These things are deep. And your ability to blend into a bi-gendered society and get along. And of course, your economic realities, right? These things all fucking matter. I shame this country for categorizing stark conversation about these topics as being quote unquote identity politics or some sort of label that silences people. These are important things. These are real things, and we help people by taking these things into account as well. It is the whole of the picture of the story of the person that matters to us. And so that's how I would answer that.
Thank you. So our show is a show by an Asian American talking to Asian Americans for a generally Asian American audience. Um, what are there a lot of folks in our community involved in this mutual aid project?
So I'll answer that at two ends of the scale spectrum. So just privately in my circle, running the mutual aid stand-up organization right now, this little sort of subset of the ground game community. The top of the pyramid in terms of decision making and calling the shots are three women, two of whom are Asian American, both Korean American, and one Jewish American woman. And these ladies are amazing, and I look up to both of the Asian American women in particular as people who I can see as truly being leaders in our community, bridging some of the divides that we see. I think in gosh, this is heavy stuff, man. Like what you're really getting at is why the fuck don't Asian Americans? Why aren't there more of us out there? I think is part of what you're asking. I at least feel frustrated about that. And I'm pleased to say that we have Asian Americans. I'm actually in another group of. There's a lot of us out here, man. There's a lot of us out here, and I think that part of what I try to do actually is debunk the idea, the myth that we aren't. In fact, I can name a number of other organizations where that are led by Asian American women. Three right off the top of my head. Times Up right now is Sela, Times Up former entertainment director Nithya Raman, who founded Sela with Janet and Kat Kim, both Korean American sisters. Sela is the premier neighborhood outreach, grassroots outreach, non-governmental solution, homeless solution organization in LA operating. Sela stands for Silver Lake, Echo Park, Los Feliz, Atwater, and Hollywood. And Jane Nguyen, she also goes by Jane Lane at SoCal Jane. She runs K-Town for All, Koreatown for All, and they are a major power in terms of getting homeless people, unhoused people, residents of LA the rights that they already have, just but are denied on a regular basis by basically bad laws. Essentially, is what it comes down to. In fact, you should have her come here and talk about it. She's much more fluent about it than I am. Her work is amazing. You're talking here about a young woman who had a regular job, still has a regular job, and just she's her life is much bigger than that now. But has single-handedly built out a community of people that are beginning to blur the lines between what it means to be someone on the streets and someone in a house under a roof in a home. For whatever reason, someday there's going to be academics studying this, I'm sure. Asian American females in the community are leading a lot of this work. I see it around me. I think it's beautiful. One of my friends, his name is Theo Henderson. He makes a podcast called We the Unhoused. He's a black man in Chinatown in the park, living on the streets with a flip phone, going around telling his story and finding stories of people in his community, unhoused members of the community, and a group called Street Watch LA, also a ground game affiliated organization, who advocates and protects homeless persons from police and other city officials who come to remove their belongings unlawfully, and sometimes put their lives at risk by by throwing things away that contain medication or important irreplaceable documents, or the cleaning supplies that they use to hold down what could be considered a day job for the amount of money that they can make, things like this, right? And These organizations are out there doing this kind of work. What Theo tells me is that one of the things that he really wants me to understand, as we've been getting to know each other, is like, hey, listen, man, don't believe what people tell you, because where I've been in Chinatown, the Chinese community, from churches, just neighbors, have been the most charitable, understanding, and loving in my experience. I shouldn't say the most. I don't think that's a fair thing to say. I don't think those are his words even, or maybe they were his words. But At the very least, Chinatown residents and Chinese Americans have an untold story of kindness, compassion, and personal selflessness, I guess you could say, just caring about other people, that often gets lost. So when you ask a question like that to me, part of it is I feel like I need to reframe the whole thing, which is to say that it's not even true in the first place. What I do see as true, though, is that a lot of us are susceptible to capitalism like anybody else, and we're class blind. We grew up middle class. We aspired to be upper middle class, or we grew up upper middle class and aspired to be owning class, or whatever it was, this upward thing. That part of the Asian culture is very real, and I think a lot of us who grew up with some amount of privilege just don't know the reality of what it means to be in a different situation. And I've had to learn it myself. But once you do learn it, Asians are as human as anybody else. We want to be there. We want to take leadership. We want to move things forward. We want to love and support each other. It's just a little bit of stepping, maybe for some of us, stepping outside of the stream for a second to see what else is out there, to slow down and ask people what their days are like and what they're dealing with, and hear enough stories that you become changed, and then knowing that there's nothing left to do but to make action on that change, and that's where I am, at least.
And thanks for sharing that. The question wasn't necessarily a loaded question to say, hey, most of us aren't out there. I know that people are out there because I have friends like you and
Yeah.
Roger and so many other people who are out there and they report, and it's so amazing to see. You're right about the women. They are changing the face of our city here in LA, nonprofits across the country, the world. They are the change makers. We want to do everything we can to support them, whether it's time, money, energy, putting their message on a pedestal or a speakerphone to get it as loudly as we can. I think what you are doing and what your friends and your network is doing right now, it is an amazing thing. I don't know how it is in your city where you may be listening, but here in Los Angeles, as of Monday night, we have heard that County of LA has taken over, or I guess the governor did, to start to take over hotels in the local area to consider housing temporarily some of the unhoused and the homeless population as a public health measure. So, John, the things that you talk about when it comes to the humanity during the removal and relocation process and the other health services that need to be offered to these folks, while they may have a roof over their head and food to eat in these new surroundings, it does raise more questions as we navigate these challenging times as a society, not only for what it means during this time, but what does this mean when we get out of it? How do we, what is society going to look like? and we don't know. And so we do need to focus on those things. However, I think the immediate needs that you are focusing on now and you're helping with, which is getting people food,
Mm,
getting people medicine, transportation.
yeah.
There was an intelligent question asked by a woman on NPR the other day, and I think drive-through clinics are being lauded across the country as the next thing.
Mhm.
Well, you know what? A lot of people don't have cars, so what do we do about them?
Yeah.
Simple questions like that, that unless we keep asking the right people and we keep talking about it, will get overlooked because the marginalized has historically always been overlooked.
Mhm.
It's a much deeper discussion. It is, something I hope that through this, as we go through what we're going through now, that as you said, John, empathy. How does somebody else live and how did they grow up? It helps to understand, and a lot of people listening, myself included, we've been on the receiving end of discrimination, of racism, of judgment, of being the other, being a foreigner, and what you're doing to move that forward to the next level and to say, hey, now that I am comfortable, more comfortable than my parents were, and I have the ability and the desire to help others, you're really doing great stuff out there, John. So I want to thank you, and look, this is a testament to your character. I don't know when people are listening to this, but it's 11:30 p.m.
Oh,
I
goddamn.
messaged John on Facebook an hour ago, and my memory jogged. You were looking for an organization to give away money to
Yeah,
help
that's right.
a well-deserving Asian American
Yeah.
entertainment organization, and that's how we connected. So even through that, I think it's an amazing thing, John. I want to thank you, but I want to give you an opportunity to share a little bit of how people can learn more about the work that mutual aid is doing, but also if people are listening in their own cities and their own towns. And I want to speak directly, specifically to our friends who are listening in parts of the country who haven't been hit as hard as LA has yet. New York City, New Rochelle, Seattle, San Francisco. Obviously, because this is a proximity and a community spread issue, the larger cities are understandably going to get hit harder, faster. But if you are in a smaller, regional, rural community, I don't think we're immune from it. Or at least I don't think we should be pretending that we're going to be immune from it. So, first, share with us a little bit about how we can learn more about mutual aid here in LA. But also, if you can point some people to some resources or, to really activate the community where they may be right now, because as helpless as we may feel, we have the power and the ability to do so much more for people who are in far worse conditions than we are.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna plug a couple quick Bitly links at you. So each of one of these links, it's bit.ly slash, right? If you know that convention. So bit.ly slash. So the first one is quarantine prep, capital Q, capital P, quarantine prep. So we got the quarantine prep tip sheet. It's a fun one. Coronavirus tech handbook. .com, I think, is another one that we had nothing to do with, but is the technology and scientific community coming together to pool resources around, just precautions and also the science and things that lay people don't really need to know about, but there is some good stuff for lay people. And then around the mutual aid group specifically, there's a way to donate if you are not local. So that would be Bitly and the quote, the gosh, you have all the links, so it doesn't really matter. But yes, there's a way to donate to us. There's a way to fill out a form if you're in LA and you want to get involved and be in the network. So if there's something you want to give, if there's things you want to give, if there's services you can offer, if there are things that are sitting around your house, if there's ideas in your brain, things that you know how to do that you want to make sure have an impact and make someone's life better and really put a smile on someone's face and really help someone get through a hard time, that's how you can sign up. If you are somebody who needs something, if you know people who need things, if you know people who are older, who are immunocompromised, who are sick, who are recovering from something, who are, just rent burdened, having a hard time keeping the roof over their heads, who are worried about being furloughed, laid off, etc., etc., etc. It's happening to all of us and our neighbors and friends. then they can sign up as well. And there's places that they can sign up for sharing what it is that they need, and we will make sure that they get it. It's that simple. Take a look at the links on the page, and please learn about what it means to stay safe, and please consider joining a mutual aid network in your own area. There are many spreading all around. Facebook groups, you can find them on, probably one of the easiest ways. I'm not sure if Google, maybe. A lot of these things are being standing up in the last 24 to 48 hours, 72 hours. They're all very new. Have at it, folks. It's 2020. We can do this. Let's take care of each other.
And the message too here is that you can do a tremendous amount of help without leaving your home.
Yes.
Whether it's moderating Facebook groups, whether it is being the communication center, whether it is, watching the news and sharing along what's going on. You don't have to leave your home to make a difference right now. I know there are people like you, John, who are literally jumping in your cars to make deliveries, which is great. But for whatever reason, if you are quarantining, this is a great alternative to some of the things that you might be doing to really make a difference. And through that, I think you can even help communities that you don't physically live in. So yeah, hey John, this has been an amazing conversation. I learned so much. I know that the work that you do is beyond words important and literally life altering and life changing for so many people right now. It is uncertain times. It is wild times. I know that we will get through it, but there will be changes that we will have experienced. But I am grateful for people like you in our community who, in addition to what you do during the day, have really made it your passion to not only do what you do, but also to share about it like this so that it can inspire at least one more person to jump up out of their chair and join you in this fight. So to you, the rest of the crew at Ground Game, and the mutual aid community out here in LA and beyond, stay safe, number one. Get some rest. There's a lot of people supporting you and rooting for you guys. And really, from the bottom of my heart, thank you, man.
Jerry, thank you so much. I want to give one last plug. I was loath to forget this until now. Ground Game. We're Ground Game. It's an open field. Join us. Mutual aid, join us. The donations and the involvement, all of that is fantastic. If you want to get involved, you can. It's easy. We're doing all Zoom meetings at this point. So shoot, I guess, info@groundgamela.org in email, or friggin' whatever. Jerry, you got my social handles and all this shit like on the page, right?
Yep.
So okay.
Find John. Yep.
Yeah,
We
hit
will find
me
you,
up.
John.
We'll plug you into the Zoom. You're gonna have a great time. You're gonna learn some stuff about what's going on in the city, and help us fix it. So, thanks, Jerry. I really appreciated this. Yeah.
Hey, thank you for coming on, and stay safe out there, brother.
Yeah, you too. Have fun being a great dad.
Hey, everybody, it's Jerry. This conversation with John was so good, I forgot to ask him our signature question of the podcast. So I had to call him back a little bit later after we recorded the rest of the episode. And I didn't want to mess with the flow of the interview. So here it is, the key question of the podcast. So, John, the name of our podcast is Dear Asian Americans, and the idea behind it really is a love letter to us, from us, those in the community, to help make sense of the world and to help celebrate, support, and inspire. So I would love for you to send a letter to the audience. So I will start and help us finish up the show. Dear Asian Americans.
Wow. Well, first of all, Jerry, before I can answer that right away, I just want to say thank you for opening up this conversation. You and I have spoken offline about your mission on this project, which is to reach those Asian Americans in parts of the country, in communities and neighborhoods, schools, who aren't, privileged enough to have that abundance of others who look and sound and act like them, and maybe there's some isolation in those communities. So speaking with those young men, women, and everybody else in mind, speaking to myself as a kid growing up in Phoenix, I would say, dear Asian Americans, you're not alone. I'm here with you, standing shoulder to shoulder, elbow to elbow, rather, at this time. And I'm not going anywhere. Our generation is making changes that are going to continue to unfold generationally speaking, this is something brand new. We've never seen this. Our parents can't lead us down this path. They weren't here for it. And even myself, speaking as somebody who's 29 right now, I look with envy and excitement at the promise of what the next generation can bring. So we're all here for our short period. We know what we know. We don't know what we don't know. But we're not alone. Whatever challenges you face, whatever novelties you face, whatever misunderstandings I bring to the table, and you look at me like I'm an old man who doesn't know what he's talking about or out of touch, I welcome that too. And just that community, that conversation, and being understanding deep in our hearts that if there are others out there who shame us or confuse us or look down on us and wonder about, and I'm talking about from inside the Asian American community, people who look at us, sometimes as older folks, sometimes as folks from other parts of the country, who look and say, hey, you're not doing it right, or that doesn't make sense. Just remember that your situation truly is unique. So it's a both and, right? We're here together, we're a community, and your situation is truly unique. You know what's best in many ways because of what you're dealing with. And until we get to that place where our numbers are big enough and our identity really is congealing, and it's happening, right? We're seeing it everywhere. But until that really comes together in a big way, don't be afraid to think that your particular point of view, as different or unique as it might be, might not be the right one or the best one for the job. So all that is to say, keep pushing, keep trying things, make mistakes. And if no one else around you is doing what you're doing, that's not a sign of anything necessarily. It just might mean that you're in a particularly unique situation and you are the ones with the tools to figure out the next step. And we're here for you. So all of that.
Thanks, man. Agree with everything you said. Even if you think your unique situation is the only one, you're not. We just haven't found that person yet. So what if there's anything that I've learned speaking with all my friends through this podcast and through life experiences is the realization that once you start hearing other people's stories, light bulbs go off everywhere of triggers and memories that come back from our own. So man, it's John, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you again for what you're doing in the community and in LA to help us get through this mess. And I look forward to the day that you and I and many other people listening can celebrate and have a drink in person together, everybody. Let's hope that day comes sooner than later. Thanks again, John.
Thank you. Bye now.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to my conversation with John Ma, who is working right now with a group called Ground Game LA, working on mutual aid projects, really even physically jumping in cars at night, making supermarket trips, and doing whatever we need to do, what we can do to help not only our neighbors, but our most marginalized and our most needy neighbors. So wherever you are, however you can, whoever you are, we can make a difference to our fellow human beings to help us get through this thing together. Google it, Facebook it, bother John. He'll help you connect the dots. Let's make a difference, and each of us really can make a big difference. So thanks for listening. It's been an honor to have this conversation with John, and I hope you learned something from it. And be safe out there, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow.